When Steel Talks, everybody listen.
When Steel Talks are very pleased to have the opportunity of chatting with Jonathan Scales of the Jonathan Scales Orchestra. Welcome to When Steel Talks. I mean, we've been around you for the past 5 years or so, since your first time when we caught you in Harlem at the Shrine, 2009, but we've followed you since then. We've been to several of your performances, and it's just pretty cool to actually have the opportunity to sit down and share about you face to face with the global steel pan community. So welcome to When Steel Talks officially, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey,
once again.
First of all, let's talk about what was the performance like. You were at Subculture in the Village last night, Bleecker Street in New York City. How was that? You were in the midst of a tour, so
yeah, it was amazing. I would say that we've been coming to New York since 2009.
Okay, that was your first time.
Yeah, that was the first time. So whenever you're doing something on the ground up level, it definitely takes years to build. So last night was definitely our best show in New York, like biggest turnout, especially for that area, Manhattan. We've been in New York and played for a couple people. Like literally, we've been in New York and played for 5 people before. I mean, we've probably been here. We've probably done maybe like 10 or 11, 12 shows in the past.
But you've been building the fan base.
We've been building it little by little, and just making the right connections, and it's just worked itself out to where finally starting to pick up a little bit of traction.
Because you even played at Pantonic Steel Orchestra in the Pan Yard Sunday a couple of years ago, 2011. So that was pretty cool as well. That was
one of the highlights of my career. Still, was the Pantonic Pan Yard show.
That was a difference, indeed.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Okay, so what, you had 1 set or 2 sets last night?
Interestingly enough, there was another band called House of Waters.
Okay.
With a hammer dulcimer, and so the venue had the idea to say, what if we took this trio that has a hammer dulcimer in the lead, and then this trio that has a steel pan in the lead.
Oh.
And I hate to say this term, like instruments people aren't really used to seeing with the forefront in that kind of setting. And so what they did is we both were set up at the same time, and so they would do a couple pieces, we would do a couple pieces back and forth.
And how did that go down?
It went really well, and there's some parts where I joined them. So you have steel pan and hammer dulcimer together.
Oh.
And sometimes people from their group would join us. So it was
once in a lifetime, one of those combinations you're not likely to see unless you were in the right place at the right time. Sounds like that's what it was last night at the Subculture.
It was. And also Justin Stanton, the trumpet player from Snarky Puppy, actually showed up and played, so that was cool to have, some Grammy Award winning horn player on the stage with us last night.
That's cool. So how has the orchestra been going? We've got Phil Bronson on drums, we've got Cody Wright on bass, and you guys have been tight for a couple of years now. For those who are not really aware of it, you originally started with 4 people, yourself on double second, then you had Ron Lassiter.
You're good.
You had Sean, and I'm missing someone else. You had Ryan on drums.
Yeah.
You had Sean, and you had someone on guitar.
Sean.
Right.
Oh, wait.
And bass.
Shannon.
Dwayne.
Shannon on the bass.
And Dwayne.
And Dwayne on guitar.
Right. So
good memory.
So you've moved on, but this is you're still tight, even though it's just a trio. And so how's the relationship been musically? And of course, you guys are on the road all the time together. So talk about that.
Well, once Dwayne left the band, people always ask about why is it called the Orchestra? There's only 3 people. Well, Dwayne was a guitar player, and once he left the band in 2011, we just kept going with it. And actually, when we did that Pantonic show, that was one of the first shows we did without Dwayne. Okay. And so during that weekend, we had 3 shows in New York, back to back to back. And after those 3 days, we realized maybe we can just do it with 3 of us. So we just kept going with it, and also musically, it pushed us to push ourselves, because we had a missing piece, what we thought was a missing piece.
Okay, but it's worked for you guys because each of you now, you have that area where you all round out the orchestra. Right,
and so we all, pretty much I think what happened was once Dwayne exited the band, to us there was a void, and because of that we stepped up our game individually.
That's the whole point, so now you really complement each other, and that's it.
Thank you very much. And then also touring, there's something about touring that makes the band...
The brotherhood.
Yeah. Like we could play one of our hardest pieces that we haven't played in months. Like yesterday in the afternoon in Connecticut, we played one of our hardest pieces at a clinic, and we haven't played that piece in a couple months. something about being in the van, being in hotels, traveling, being on the road, eating together.
You complete each other's sentences. You know what each other's thinking.
Yeah.
You know where to pick up, where to fill in.
Yeah, we make each other mad at certain times. We get along. We all get along because we're on the same page. It's all part of it. Yeah.
You're building this relationship, and we can just hear what it sounds like in the music. That's the perfect place for it when it all comes together. Now, a lot of people would think, of course, that because you play the steel pan instrument and it's the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago, that there's some Caribbean background, but a lot of people do not know or refuse to believe that you really do not have any Caribbean roots. So, for the global steel pan audience, let's talk about how you became involved in pan. 2002, you were introduced to it your freshman year at Appalachian State University, and so let's talk about how you really got involved, and the saxophone, middle school, and how you went into the pan. Let's get all that out there for the record. Jonathan Scales.
Okay.
101.
That was pretty impressive. What you just said was.
Okay.
Whenever somebody knows information about me, I still feel really shocked. Like, how do you know that? I still feel like that all the time.
Okay.
Okay, so like you said, I started playing saxophone in middle school. To make a really long story short, my first couple years of high school, I didn't do band in school because I moved to. I lived in Germany for a few years.
Your military family.
Yeah, military family. And when I moved back to the States, I had a fear that the American kids were going to be so much better than the American kids of Germany.
Okay.
And so I decided to not be in the band, which is crazy. I decided so I played soccer. I played soccer, but during soccer practice, I could always hear the marching band playing. I was like, man, I should be over there.
Yeah.
So then my junior year, I finally was like, all right, I'm going to get back into band on the saxophone. Spent the whole summer working on that, working on the music. On the second day of band camp, the band director says, does anybody want to play, be in the drum line? And for some reason, I just raised my hand, and then I auditioned, and I learned the part, and I got a part playing bass drum in the drum line. So that's where percussion started for me. And then so when I got to college, I went and studied composition at Appalachian State. When I got there, there was a steel band.
Dr. Meister.
Dr. Meister. You're good.
Background. Background.
Dr. Meister. Okay. Yeah, so the steel band at Appalachian State, like a 20-piece band, small band, and I had friends that were in the band that were upperclassmen, and they were saying, Jonathan, you really like it, you should try it out. And me, I'm very like tunnel vision when I have like goals. So to me, being part of the steel band was not in the plans for me.
Yeah, I understand. And it's such a different instrument at the same time.
It was a different instrument. I was new to college. I was just focused on being, doing composition.
Classical composition and everything else, yeah.
So I wasn't really worried about trying to start something new on the first day. And so, really, to make a long story short, this sounds like a start of a bad story, but trust me.
It's all good. We can see where you are today.
So this part sounds like start of a bad story. So there's a girl who was auditioning for the steel band. Usually when I say that, people think I was trying to holler at this girl, but really she was auditioning for the steel band, and she was a French horn player, and we went to high school together, and I knew her abilities, and I was thinking, if she can play, if she can do it, I can do it. I know this sounds terrible, but that is literally how I got into it. And the crazy part about it is she auditioned on double seconds, and there was only like 2 double second spots open in the band, and so I pretty much said, I think I could beat her.
Okay.
And I just recently told her about this. Ashley Davis, if you're watching. Yeah, so I saw Ashley Davis auditioning on double seconds. And I was like, man, I can do that. So, fortunately enough, I got the audition. I got the spot in the steel band, and that just changed my life. Indeed.
So how do you think your original background as a saxophone player has influenced your present career and, your path, your goal, your vision as a steel pan player now?
People ask me that, and I would say probably, to me, not very much. But of course, there might be some subconscious things. But I would say mostly what influences me as a steel band player is on the composition side.
Okay.
So just analytical thinking about music, just from anywhere from listening to rap to classical to jazz to really out there avant-garde stuff. All that stuff combined has really had a big influence on me compositionally, and when I apply that to pan, it comes out how it comes out, and so I just really attribute all that to my analyzing different styles and trying to just take little parts from here and there of different types of styles that I enjoy.
So how would you describe Jonathan Scales' music? I realize based on what you just said, it's a little bit difficult to really, put it in a mold.
Right.
But talk about, the music that's within you and how it evolves into pan and, of course, the orchestra as a whole.
Okay, well, I would say that if you ask me how to describe my music, I say that I won't just describe it. Just because, really, at the end of the day, I can just put forth, the material as I envision it, and then people are going to have their own different interpretations. Mm-hmm. But, a lot of people call us like a jazz fusion band, just because, historically there have been like Weather Report and My Mission Orchestra and Bailiff like with Leftones.
And that's your influence here.
Those are big influences as far as like instrumental music and like trying to take instrumental music and trying to push boundaries a little bit with it, in the sense of what people socially think that instruments should do.
And it's interesting because you also think about that when it comes to pan, because a lot of people still have the idea of the subway player if you're in New York,
right.
Or for those who think about island shirts, straw hats on the beach.
Right.
And heaven forbid, that is not Jonathan Scales. That is not going to be Jonathan if that's your safe idea of pan.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I feel really fortunate because I didn't really people. I feel like I have a reputation for pushing that boundary in that kind of way, but at the beginning it was completely unintentional.
Yeah.
It was just I just so happened to love the instrument and the culture and everything that goes behind that, like Trinidad, Calypso. Like once I got into pan, I really got into it. And as a composer, I was coming from a film score background, like film score and just progressive classical music. And when I wrote the music that I wanted to write on pan, it was perceived, oh man, this is something different,
mm-hmm.
And so I was like, really? That's cool, I didn't really, it's hard for me to see the other perspective from the other side, because for me, I was just doing whatever I wanted to do. And so I feel very fortunate that it's working out, how it's working out to where, people are accepting. The reception.
Great, yeah.
Especially first time I went to Trinidad to play was, I think it was 2009.
2004 you visited, right? In 2009 you played at Jazz with Greens. Yeah, okay.
Yes, in 2009 when I played Jazz Artists in the Greens, I was semi-afraid to play my original music.
But you eventually went with the Jam with Man, remember?
Yeah. But, so we did the all-original set. And originally I was going to say maybe I should throw in a Calypso so that everybody can like me or something. I don't know. I didn't know what to think.
But you went with the Jonathan and that worked out super fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I went in just doing our thing, and we had a great reception in Trinidad, and that was a very positive thing for me to move forward, knowing that I can still be myself and have the support of the community.
So do you think, basically based on what you've just described, that might be the reason why your overall steel pan audience is different from any that really we've ever seen? I mean, it's made up of all types, all appreciations. Do you think that's...
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I think that makes sense.
You've had 4 CDs to date. The last one was in 2013 you released. I mean, you've evolved, from recording to recording. Talk about your experiences, your visions, and the fact that a lot of the stuff you write happens to come from your own life experiences. Some of the stuff you've composed since you were in school, and they've come to life now in pan. Talk about that in general.
Okay, well, like you mentioned, I have 4 albums out. 5th one that is coming out in May.
Working.
I'm really excited about that. Okay. But as time progressed, I guess it started off with just me trying to be like my idols. Like me trying to be like Bailiff. So I said, all right, I want to make an album too. You know, I want to have CDs and tour and things like that. So that's when I really started writing music catered to, you know, my ideas on pan with an ensemble. And so that was, I guess, like 2006 is when 2005, 2006 is when that started happening, and it just has evolved over time to the beginning days where I had all my friends playing different parts to nowadays where I have, you know, solid guys playing certain parts to have a cohesive sound. You know, it's definitely evolved in that way over time.
So, you've spoken about, you know, how you got briefly from where you are. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Okay. We've touched on how you came into Japan first of all. Talk about your musical influences.
Okay. You know, I would say, starting from the earliest part of my life, I would say the biggest influences were people like, just like Michael Jackson. You know, just because that's music that was going on in the house. And Michael Jackson and gospel music, like Kurt Franklin and, you know, stuff like that is what I was raised to listen to. And then when I got into middle school, like late middle school, I started trying to write music just because it seemed interesting to me. So I would just make stuff up and just, it was like drawing really, it wasn't really like writing music.
Okay.
And then from there, I got into Bach, you know. So like in middle school, I got really heavy into Bach. That was my first CD that I got, was the Brandenburg Concertos, actually. And from there, that's kind of, you know, branched me out to different styles of instrumental music, especially classical and neoclassical and things like that. And in college, big influence, or before I went to college, something that really drove me to pursue this was listening to film scores.
Right, and you just mentioned that's the type of vision you have.
Yeah, and to pinpoint that, I would have to say that it was the remake of Planet of the Apes. Yeah, Danny Elfman scored to the remake of Planet of the Apes, starring Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, that movie, I saw that when I was a senior in high school, and that single-handedly made me want to pursue composition. And then when I got into school, that's when I was learning about Bela Fleck and, you know, Chick Corea and all those guys, and that's when I started trying to, you know, all those influences were in me, and so I guess what comes out is just a mesh of all those things.
Combination of everything. Okay, we at Wednesday Talks, we've described you as, you know, having a felonious, monk-like attitude, with Mozart creativity, and, you know, essentially, is there a touch of like Jimi Hendrix influence anywhere that's creeping into, or is actually reflected already in terms of the purpose of your music?
You know, it's funny you say that, because I have seen somewhere, a couple places online, where someone said I was Jimi Hendrix's fan, which I don't even know what it means. But, you know, I saw that, I thought it was interesting, because, you know, Jimi Hendrix, he's an influence on me more as a band leader, you know, just like his vibe, even outside of music, just like his character, you know. So he's I would say he's influenced me that way.
And you look at Miles Davis that way as well.
Exactly. I was gonna say that, like Miles Davis. How do you know these things? Yeah, Miles Davis. You know, of course, he's a great musician, great composer. But like to me, he's a great band leader, and just his personality, and you know, he has a certain aesthetic that he brings to the art, and so that's definitely a big influence on how I approach what I do.
Okay. Regarding Phil Bronson, drums, Cody, Wright, basses. Their contributions in terms of the orchestra. Talk a bit more about that.
Okay, well in the early days it was mostly just them playing the parts that the other guy before them had already played and them having their own spin on it. But as we toured, I realized that I really should start getting compositional contribution from them.
Input, reflection.
Yeah, just because for one, if, you know, they're going to feel more part of it, you know. And also for two, I know that they have really good things going on up there to where it would help the overall picture, you know. So it was actually around the time of the last album, self-titled album, where I came to the crossroads to say, on the next project, do I want to just be the composer and just, you know, just write everything myself and make these guys do what I say? Like in the old days, just because like back then, there was not really that much stability of the lineup in reality. You know, the guys weren't necessarily in it all the way. We were all really, really young. So I decided to go the route to kind of open it up and take some input compositionally, which worked out great or still worked out great because, you know, Cody brings things to the table that I never would have thought of, and Phil brings things to the table that I never would have thought of. And I still have to get balance because there's parts that I write for them, and there's parts that they write for themselves, and there's parts where I'll say, hey Cody, you know, here's this chord progression, you come up with something cool, that's great. You know, there's times where I tell Phil, okay, it's going to be, you know, 3 bars of 7, a bar of 3/4, and then a bar of 10, and it's going to be this kind of style, and you can come up with your own thing. So there's a lot of balance of that.
Rhythmically, harmonically, you know, your style is eclectic. That's out there. We know that. It's beautiful. In terms of not alienating your audience, and you know, you keep them coming back for more. How do you do that?
You know, that's a tough question, but if I had to answer the question, I would say that within the music itself, I like to try to write things that keep the audience on their toes. So sometimes that means using compositional tricks rhythmically, harmonically, or melodically. And I've always had this thing of trying to keep the audience on their toes. So I'm big into John Cage and Stravinsky and guys like that, especially John Cage. You know, he's a guy who wrote a piece called 433, where the pianist comes, sits down at the piano for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, doesn't play a note. And
wow.
this was probably, this could be wrong, but I think this might have been in the 50s. So for that time, that was progressive and it was keeping people on their toes. They didn't know what was going on. Why is this guy on the stage not playing a note, you know? So like John Cage is a really huge influence on me in that respect of, you know, trying different things to engage the audience mentally. And, you know, that's a challenge because for me, you know, we're playing rock clubs also. We're playing rock clubs, concert halls, everything in between. And so to try to engage with an audience who, in their normal lives, they probably listen to music with words, you know. So to me,
or they might even be set in certain genres.
Yeah, they might be set in certain genres, or they might be used to listening to, you know, music with words. Where, you know, with music with words, there's no escaping what the feeling you're supposed to feel because the song tells you how you're supposed to feel. It tells you the story. You feel how you're supposed to feel, and with instrumental music, it's really open to interpretation. So I tried hard compositionally to try to engage the audience mentally. And also I would say, just like the stage presence kind of thing is, I guess, something I've just been working on over the years, but I feel like when I connect with the audience, just by talking to them, they understand my music a lot more. Or say it about telling the story about the song before we play it, they connect with it. Like, we had a song, The Longest November, and I tell the story about how I didn't have any shows for a whole month, and that was my livelihood, and I didn't know how I was going to survive back in the day, so I wrote that song. And so when I tell people that before we play it, people can kind of connect with it, and then they
appreciate the nuances, exactly what's happening, and they can relate maybe their own personal experience.
Yeah, they connect with it, and even after the show, they say, "Oh, you know, which CD is Longest November on?"
Yeah.
So I noticed that. I was like, "Whoa, you know, someone's connecting with it because I told them about, because I expressed to them what was going on in the music." So I try to connect with the audience just on a verbal level a lot, just to round it out since there's no words in our music, so they can kind of get a gist of what's going on.
Okay. Now, you're an accomplished musician, yet, as most accomplished musicians would tell you, they're forever growing and evolving. And you're walking a line, I suppose you would think, but then it's also exciting as well as you experiment and grow, yet not going to points where your audience is like, oh my goodness, what's going on? You know, you're still pulling them in. How are you doing that? I mean, is it a conscious effort on your part, or
how to answer that question. You know, I mean, from my perspective, it's different than the outside perspective. To me, I'm just hanging on by the edge of my seat. You know, I'm just happy to be doing this. I'm just happy that I get to do the music that I want to do on this instrument and that people accept it. Other than that, you know, I'm happy that people come out to the show. I'm happy that people buy the CDs and support us. But a lot of times, to be honest, I ask myself, like, why do you like this music, man? Like, I ask myself why people like my music, and sometimes I don't really, because it's a perspective thing. I can't step outside of myself and hear the same thing. So, you know, it's really hard for me to really answer that question because I don't really know. Okay. I mean, I can read what people say.
Yeah, yeah. So what do Cody and Phil get back in terms of response? And, you know, when you discuss amongst yourselves, can you share any of that?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
For instance, they say to Jonathan, you know, we really love what you do. We think, what do Phil and Cody hear?
Gotcha. Well, for Phil, I would say that Phil's a very unique drummer. Mm-hmm. You know, he's very imaginative. He's very creative. He's very spontaneous, and that's something that you know, it really strikes people. Like Phil's the type of drummer where he can play drum solo, stop and play 0 notes, and people will go crazy.
Yeah,
he's that kind of guy where he can stop playing and people will respond. You know, so he has that kind of magic about him. And with Cody, you know, he's such an amazing instrumentalist. You know, the technical facility is just through the roof. You know, so he gets a lot of comparisons to, you know, I guess people make comparisons in their mind of what they know. So he tends to get a lot of, man, you sound like Jocko. Man, you sound like Victor Newton. Man, you sound like all these great people. Of course, he has his own voice. Yeah. He has his own thing. But sometimes people don't know what else to compare it to. But, and I'm very happy to surround myself with these guys because they're putting forth so much on their instruments, respectively, that, you know, there's certain parts of the show where I can just walk up the stage and Cody's just by himself,
they just take it. Yeah. So essentially, I mean, you're really happy with your current configuration.
I'm extremely happy with it.
You're tight, you like it. As a matter of fact, you love it.
Yes.
The audience loves it, most importantly. So therefore, you're really comfortable with it.
I'm really comfortable with it, and sometimes I think that, it sounds weird, but sometimes I think I'm too comfortable in the sense that, like, for example, our new album, Mixtape Symphony, which is coming out in May, it's not written anywhere. Yeah, and I'm a composer, so I'm so comfortable with this lineup that in my head, these guys are going to be around forever. You know, knock on wood. So I don't even write any music down anymore. Like I used to have charts. I don't even write anything anymore. Cody's gonna play this bass line. Phil's gonna play this.
The creativity is just have that tape running. Or it's digitally just recorded.
Exactly. So it's, I think hopefully this will be lined up forever. Wow. You know, as long as they want to be in the band, I'll have them. So
that is just great to hear. Any plans for an international tour?
Yes. It's something that we want to do planning wise, but you know, the logistics is just, that's something we're working on.
And you'll talk about it when you're ready.
When we're ready, like we have people in Europe who are looking to support us, and there's rumors of us going back to Trinidad.
That'll be your third visit, right?
Yeah, there's rumors of us going back to Trinidad next year. I don't want to say, because what if it doesn't happen, then, you know. Yeah. But there's rumors here and there of different things. There's rumors about something in Barbados. Little things here and there. There's rumors about things in Canada. But, you know, I'm still waiting on the right opportunities and trying to make the smart moves.
On the topic of Trinidad, I mean, you've been there a couple of times, but have you ever entertained the panorama feel in terms of, ever thought about playing with a band? Or I mean, your schedule is just phenomenal. So if you have that kind of time to commit, is it something that you ever think about doing, or?
Yeah, you know, I definitely want to do Panorama one day.
At some time.
Sometime. Yeah. I definitely want to do Panorama. These days it's hard for me to do it because, you know, this thing is still, even though I've been doing it since, you know, 07, it's still a fledgling company. Yeah. You know, where not only do I have to work on the music, but I have to figure out, all right, where are we going in a couple months?
Yeah.
Geographically, just on tour, like, how are we going to promote these shows? Where are we going to sleep at night?
Yeah.
You know, just all these logistic things, and trying to figure out, all right, when's the next time we're going to record? How are we going to do it? Like, a lot of stuff outside of the music, on the business end, that I have to take care of. So I spend a lot of time in my home office focusing on all that stuff, and so that's one thing that, you know, I will do Panorama one day, but
when the time is right.
It would have to be at some time where I can just drop my schedule and everything will still go. As far as like, one thing that I think is, you know, and this might be slightly controversial to say, but I don't really think that, as far as like writing for Panorama, like arranging.
Oh, okay.
You know, I don't know. Like, I'd rather just play. I'd rather just play. And a lot of people, because I'm a composer and because I play pan, people always ask me about, do you ever think that you'll, you know? But I feel like Panorama is I feel like it's a club. You know,
and
I feel like I'm not necessarily in that club, and that's fine.
And that's fine. You just want to play and enjoy and absorb the. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So you know, a lot of people ask me, because I'm a composer, would I ever like to write for Panorama? And to me, there's a lot of great Panorama arrangers and composers.
You just want to soak it all in.
Yeah.
As another experience. Yeah. I got it. Yeah.
The new album's coming out, Mixtape Symphony, which is a long form album where it's 5 movements and a reprise. So each movement weaves seamlessly into the next.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a long form piece, kind of like it's the trio, but it's kind of like a symphonic format where you have the first movement, the second movement, and I'm really excited about that.
And johnscales.com.
johnscales.com.
Your website. Follow you on Twitter.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram,
everything,
all that good stuff.
Any time of the day you can catch you. Jonathan, it's been so cool to be able to sit down with you.
Thank you. You too.
Here in When Steel Talks. I mean, the global pan community is just going to be really happy to finally get an insight, a candid insight. Just, you know, hearing about you, who you are, what makes you tick, about Cody and Phil, what you guys are up to, and also we're just going to be following your really tight touring schedule. All right. Thank you so much for being with When Steel Talks, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
All the best. Looking forward to your new album in May.
When Steel Talks, everybody listens.